Thank you very much for being with me today. I have with me Chief Andy Ray from the Auburndale Police Department and Derek Blanton from the Winter Haven Police Department. You know, we did this recent Operation Child Protector 2, and as I always say when we do these operations, the strength of our investigations simply is our partnership with the police departments. We all work together to keep this community safe. We understand that criminals don't come and go according to city limits and county limits, and neither does support services from the Sheriff's Office and the police departments. We are all one, and this is just another example. So we did a 2-week operation, just the recent of what we've done over and over and over, to focus on those that are online seeking your children. If it weren't for the heroic work of the undercover detectives from the Sheriff's Office, the Winter Haven Police Department, the Auburndale Police Department, your children could have been the victims. But they weren't, because we stood in the gap between good and evil. We made 12 arrests. They were not only from Central Florida, but you'll hear me talk about one that occurred in an arrest that occurred out of Alabama and one out of Michigan. That's right, they were grooming and doing real nasty things online all across this neighborhood, this community, this county, this state, and as far away on this operation as Michigan and Alabama. We say that we'll chase those child predators to the ends of the earth that want to harm our children. We've done that. You've heard me talk about us arresting a person in Australia and bringing them back here for trial. Well, we only had 2 from out of state this time. But here's what is important to understand, and I want the parents to understand this. These aren't traditional criminals. 9 of the 12 of these folks don't have a criminal history. Did you hear what I said? 9 of the 12 don't have a criminal history. But what they are doing, these evil people, are lurking online and grooming children online to engage them in sexual conduct. 4 of the arrests traveled. The others, as you'll hear in a minute, provided very raucous communication, sent pictures, inappropriate pictures, nude pictures, action photos of sexual conduct to what they thought was 13, 14, 15-year-old little girls or little boys. So let me introduce you to some of them. This is Lawrence New. He lives on the Lakeland Highlands Road in Lakeland. He thought that he was traveling to have sex with a 13-year-old child. That's right. He came from South Lakeland to our undercover location at the far northeast end of the county, thinking that he was going to have sex. He said he cherished the idea about teaching this 13-year-old girl about sex. He sent nudes and action film of him doing inappropriate things. His wife of 7 years was in another room sleeping whenever he did this. I'm sorry, she was in another room when he did this, and he had to wait for her to go to sleep so he could sneak out of the house to engage what he thought was a 13-year-old child. So let me focus on this a minute. He's in one room, his wife's in another room, he's sending all kinds of ugly things to what he thinks is a 13-year-old child. Then he leaves after she falls asleep and travels all the way across the county. He confessed. We've got him locked up in jail. He's the owner of Omnia Inc., which deals in disposing medical supplies, used medical supplies. Oh, did I tell you Citrus County Sheriff's Office also has a criminal charge waiting against him as well? But we've got him locked up here now. So this is not new for him. He's 67 years old, and he's a deviant. He's a child pedophile. He's a pervert. And now he's a jailbird. Then there's Christopher Valise. He's 33. He's from Tampa. He sent explicit photos thinking he was sending them to a 14-year-old child. And he told her, I don't want to get in trouble, so let's keep this between us. Where does he work? He doesn't work. You see, he's at home on disability and SSI. That's right. So while all of us are going to work, earning money, paying our taxes, he's getting our taxpayers' money to sit at home and groom little children online. He didn't travel, but he instructed what he thought was the little 14-year-old girl to destroy the messages and the pictures because I don't want to get in trouble. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, what would an operation be? Either a pornography investigation or a predator operation or a human trafficking operation without a Disney employee. We always have a Disney employee, sometimes more. This is Zachary Hudson. That's right, he's a bus driver for Disney. He did not travel, but he sent nude and lewd pictures of himself. He thought it was to a 15-year-old girl. And he said to her while grooming her, what we said could get us all in trouble. And he said how he would like to wrap his arms around and feel her small, tiny body. Then he said, are you ready for this? You can't make this stuff up. I don't want to sound creepy. Well, you just sounded creepy. So he reiterated to what he thought was this little girl that she needed to keep it quiet. It has to be our secret. Because he said, you know, I could go to jail. He said, but I'd risk it for spending some time with you. I'd risk going to jail. Well, when we arrested him, he confessed, oh, newsflash, this will make Disney extra happy. He was doing this while he was on the clock for Disney. So if your bus was running late at Disney, he was busy taking pictures of himself and talking trash to what he thought was a little girl.
Was that his Disney uniform in that photo?
Yes. Then there's Timothy King. He's 26, from Claremont. He rode a bike. That's right, he traveled. He rode a bike. This dude was on a mission. So you might ask the sheriff, Sheriff, how far did he ride a bike to have what he thought was sex with a 15-year-old child? 10 miles. Did you hear me? 10 miles. And he said, sometimes I get excited. He didn't use those terms, but I thought I would. He used much more graphic terms. He confessed. He said, I don't have any friends. And he was very cautious when he arrived at the house. He wanted to know about cameras. Are there any cameras? Yep, there's cameras. We got your picture. In fact, we got lots of pictures. We got pictures with your clothes on. Anyway. Then there's Zachary Clark from Tampa. He works armed security for Brink's National Guard. That's right, that was his job. So the next time you see a Brink's truck and they jump out armed to pick up the loot from the store, who knows what he's doing behind closed doors. He traveled. He thought he was going to have sex with a 15-year-old child. Boy, was he surprised when the door opened and there was sheriff's detectives and police officers to arrest him. He said he was kind of antisocial, and he just did this to meet new people. He said, but don't worry, I didn't mean it. I was going to tell her mom. Well, that's as good an excuse as any when you're in a lot of trouble. This guy's 62. His name's Frank Butler. He's from Palm Beach Gardens. He's an administrator for BSG Hospitality. But he was in the Orlando area at a resort. So, hey, he thought he would confront a 13-year-old female. So he started the communication and he traveled. That's right. He traveled from the resort to meet what he thought was a 13-year-old female. You know what's interesting about that? His wife of 27 years was at the resort, and he had to wait for her to go to sleep. So his wife of 27 years, who thinks they're at the resort to have a great weekend, she falls asleep, he sneaks out and goes to the undercover operation to have sex with a 13-year-old child, he thinks. But then he told the detective, once again, you can't make this up, he's not a bad guy. He said, I'm just not a bad guy. He said, you know what I was going to do is wait at the house with this child to tell her mom, as soon as she come home, what this child was doing. Yep. And then when we explained to him about the undercover detective and not the 13-year-old child, he said, well, what did I do wrong? It's just words. Well, newsflash, words matter. Words got you locked up. You were grooming a child. You agreed to meet a 13-year-old child because you, in fact, were going to have sex with that child. Why your wife of 27 years slept blissfully in the resort down the street. He says he doesn't prey on children. So anyway, we asked him what his wife would think about all of this. He said, you know, my wife wouldn't subscribe to this. That's why I had to wait until she went to sleep. This is a stereotype of a predator and a pedophile. Then there's Michael Ochino from Kissimmee. He's a forklift driver for PepsiCo. He had conversations with 3 different undercover detectives from the police department and the sheriff's office. That's right. He thought he was talking to 13 and 14-year-old children during his conversation. He said that he would like to stay with them. He talked about making babies with the children. He didn't travel. But then he said something that was really, really, really scary. You see, our undercover detectives said that they were down here with their mom on vacation and talked about, during the conversation, the relationship. He said, look, you can stay with me, and here's how you do it. You walk away without your mom seeing you. She won't know where you are. You're from another part of the country. And then you wait for me, and I'll pick you up. Is that scary or what? He was giving what he thought to be a 13-year-old little girl directions in how to escape from her mom, and he was going to pick her up. Then what? What's next? He's 57 years of age. Here's a guy that didn't travel, but he communicated from St. Clair, Michigan. He's unemployed. He thought he was talking to a 14-year-old child. He would say things like he thought she was sexy. He instructed this child how to delete their text. And he told her, "I can't resist how young you are." He's in the St. Clair County Jail on our warrant, where we were assisted by the police authorities there arresting him. Well, Roger, buddy, welcome to Florida, because this is where you're coming. It's not going to be a vacation, unless, of course, you consider the state prison an extended stay resort. And then there's George Matthews. Here's what's interesting about old George. He's 66 years of age. He's from Ozark, Alabama. Are you ready for this? His job? He works at Fort Rucker. He's a Black Hawk mechanic. He works for M1 Support Services, which is a civilian company contracted to work on the Black Hawks. He sent very explicit images of himself to what he thought was a 13-year-old child. He did not travel but he said he would like to. He made statements to the 13-year-old that he was old enough to be her grandfather. And then he engaged in some very nasty chat. Well, when he came to work the next day and he crossed onto the base, the military police arrested him. By the way, that base, if you're not familiar with Fort Rucker, is the Army Aviation War Fighting Center. He had chats with this 13-year-old not only while he was at home, but also while he was at work. I hope he didn't get so carried away with his chats that he forgot to put all the parts back on the Black Hawk helicopters. That could be a real problem. He's in the Dell County Jail. And he's not going to be flying here on a helicopter. I'll guarantee that. All right, I would like to turn this over to a dear friend of mine and colleague. We worked together at the Sheriff's Office for 25 years until retirement age came, and then he went to be the police chief in Auburndale, and made me very proud to see one of my captains and one of the most talented people we've ever had work with us go on to be the police chief. Chief?
Thank you, sir. So 25 years here and 10 years at Auburndale, 35 years in this business, and these things still bother me, and they make my stomach turn. And if you're a parent and you have kids, or you're a grandparent and you have kids that are dear to you, do what you can to protect them, because the internet is a dangerous place. Make sure that you're monitoring them. Make sure that you're having conversations with them. There are a lot of nefarious actors out there, and we just want parents and grandparents, people who are responsible for kids, to be aware of that, and to talk to their kids about it. It's an important conversation to have. So thankful to the sheriff and his people for putting this operation together, and always thankful for the opportunity to be a team player and a partner to keep this county safe. So thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Chief. Next we have Derek. Derek Blanton is with the Winter Haven Police Department. In fact, his father and I patrolled as deputies way, way, way back in the day. And so it makes me exceptionally proud to see Derek follow in the footsteps of his dad. Derek?
Good afternoon. The members of the Winter Haven Police Department are more than happy to have participated in this operation. We'll be more than happy to participate in future operations that may come about. We're dedicated to doing our best to protect our kids in these situations, And I think it serves as a good reminder for both parents and the bad guys that, you know, we have really good detectives. So does the sheriff's office and Auburndale Police Department that are really good at their jobs, and they won't hesitate to put you in jail if you're involved in this type of situation. Thank you to the sheriff's office and Auburndale Police Department for also participating in this and having us participate as well. Thank you.
Our folks collectively are simply the very best in the business at investigating and searching out and looking for these predators. But parents, these folks will walk boldly into your home while you're there and groom your children if you don't know what your children are doing online. With that, is there any questions?
It seems like not too long ago we were here and you were talking about, you know, Child Protector 1, that operation that took place. Can you kind of describe the scope of this issue in Polk County?
Well, you know, interestingly enough, the overwhelming majority of these people weren't from Polk County. But what we do is we throw a wide net. This time it went as far as Alabama and Michigan to arrest people. So, and my challenge would be to the police agencies and sheriff's offices who aren't doing these operations across the United States, why not? Because that's where the predators are. That's where the child pornographers are. They're all online. And they're looking for children to attack. So when you look at these operations, you understand that my passion, my absolute top priority is to protect the children from sexual predators. Children are supposed to be innocent, but at 13, 14, 15, they're curious. And the next thing you know, this person's shown up in the gaming room with them or with the child chat room with them, looking for those who are alone or lonesome or sad or in need of attention. And that's who they focus on first. So at the end of the day, it's a Polk County solution to a nationwide problem. So we chase you to the ends of the earth. And I also applaud my colleagues from ICAC around this state and nation that do the same thing. But there's a lot of police agencies that don't. And if you don't, I will. We're gonna find them, because it's as important for me to save a child from a predator in Alabama or Michigan or Alaska or any place else in the world, Australia, as it is in Polk County. These people will get to your children if given the opportunity. And if they never travel to put hands on them, by the time they groom them and send them all of this ugliness, it certainly breaks down the barriers so that someone else can attack them.
Sheriff, one of our reporters would like to know, where was the Disney employee arrested? Was he arrested on property or near Disney property? Or?
I'm not sure where he was arrested because he did not travel. We went to him to arrest him. So I don't know if they called him up, you know, from work, but I believe he was in uniform when, in fact, I'm sure he was in uniform when we arrested him.
And Sheriff, you've been doing these operations for years, and these used to be really large numbers. Do you feel like you're making an impact? I mean, the numbers of people being arrested become smaller and smaller, seems like these days. What kind of impact do you think you're making?
Certainly, I think we're making a significant impact, because when we first started these operations, what, 10, 12, 15 years ago, we were arresting 30, 40 a week. And this was a good week to get 12. So the difference is child pornographers can go into the deep, dark web, and they're very difficult to find. We do, but they're deep, dark web people that understand that. It's very difficult. But child predators have to surface. They have to go in the chat rooms. They have to go in the gaming rooms. They have to be where the children are. So by virtue of us not arresting as many as we used to, it doesn't mean they're not out there, because they are. Have some of them become more savvy? Certainly they have with education. But we truly believe we're making a difference. We truly know that we're saving children's lives and protecting them from deviants such as this.
Do any of them express any remorse, or are they just sorry they got caught?
Most of the time they confess, occasionally they don't. Most of them, the remorse they display is because they got caught. Occasionally one will be just obviously honest and say, yeah, I shouldn't have done it, but I did, and now here I am. But most of them have an excuse, and most of them are just sorry they were caught.
Do we know how many additional suspects detectives are looking for?
Well, do you know that we have, this is an ongoing process. We never quit investigating these folks. We know that we have warrants out for 2 more that we're not showing who they are now because we want to get them in hand first. So we will catch them. We also know that we're online now. We are all the time looking for these deviants. So wherever you are in the world, if you've been talking nasty and sending nasty pictures to what you thought was a child, we're after you. And if we didn't get you last time, we'll get you next time. And then I'll have a picture of you, and I'll badmouth you just like I did these. That's a guarantee.
And you said the operation lasted about a week.
This one was 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay, so for what do you think that you kind of alluded that it takes teamwork and other municipalities to come together for that? What do you think needs to be done nationally as law enforcement together to kind of really put a major dent into it? Because you said that some of them don't do these operations. So what do you think needs to be done?
Sure, I think that's a very good question. First and foremost, we have to have parents quit being in denial. Second, parents have to understand the first line of defense is at home. So they need to be all up in their child's business. If you give your child a cell phone, I recommend first don't let them out in the internet world. Bring games in, lock down the cell phone, or if you're going to let them into the internet world, then you need to have an app on your phone, and there's good apps there where you can trace and know everything your child's searching up or who they're talking to. You have to do that. If not, these folks will get to your children. And then law enforcement agencies need to work together. Listen, we've got a very large agency. And we can do a predator operation without the assistance of the police department. But we can't be as successful without our colleagues. The more we have investigating, the more they help us, the more robust the investigation and the more arrest we can make. These police agencies that are standing with me today and others that have been in past operations with us are simply the very best. And we all care about the children, and we don't care whether they live in the city or in the county or in the state. We want to protect them. So for the small agencies across the nation that just don't have the resources to do it by themselves, there's ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Or you can put your own task force together. And there's many ICAC teams across the nation. We will teach you how to do this. Free. You just have to put the resources together. And I challenge the moms and dads. I like moms because when moms gets on you, you either make it better or you're miserable. Go to your local police department and sheriff's office and say, I know you're small and can't handle this by yourself, so when you can get together with your other police departments or other sheriff's offices or state police and put one of these operations on to protect our children in this state. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much. I hope you all have a good weekend. We will see you the next time somebody does something really stupid. Guaranteed. Take care.